I am just so grateful for the opportunity that people want to hear me, because I have been told that my story didn't matter. And that I'm saying that with a full heart. And somebody said, that story's kind of old. It doesn't matter anymore. It's just, what do you mean my story doesn't matter? Tell me exactly how it doesn't. And then I'll tell you why it does. When I've been told something like that, but I still hear, you got one person over here saying the story doesn't matter, and then you got 1,000 people over here saying that, dude, you inspired me. So now tell me who matters. If I can reach one, man, just one, that's really what matters.
Thank you for tuning in to the Mile 40 podcast. I am Bishoy Tadros, the author of Break Barriers and Audacious, both of which are sold on Amazon. And I invite you to join me as I engage with guests to discuss those bounce back moments that we encounter on our personal journey. Mile 40 is a forum to learn about how athletes, professionals, and leaders of all backgrounds stare down moments in life where the only option is to rise up. The Mile 40 podcast strives to remind listeners that the comeback is always greater than the setback. Welcome back to another episode of the Mile 40 podcast. Thank you all for continuing to tune in. I cannot tell you how grateful I am for you all. The show continues to rock because of you, the listeners, the audience. Keep dropping those reviews. If you haven't already, please be sure to hit subscribe if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Also, check out the show notes. Pick up a copy of Break Barriers or Audacious. Your support means a lot to me personally, and I can't tell you how excited I get every time I send out one of those books. Today's guest is a special guest. Today I have Kijuan Amey. He's a visionary behind Amey Motivation. He hails from Durham, North Carolina, where his journey of resilience and success began. After graduating from Southern High School, he dedicated a decade of his life to the U.S. Air Force, achieving the rank of Staff Sergeant as an in-flight refueling specialist. Medically retired, he transitioned into academia, earning a degree and founding Amey Motivation LLC. He formerly served as the vice president for the Carolina Regional Group of the Blinded Veterans Association. He's also a mentor and ambassador for the Air Force Wounded Warriors Program. But beyond his remarkable military career, he's a man of many talents, boasting over 25 years of drumming expertise, on-stage acting, and now an upcoming bestseller, Don't Focus on Why Me. Now armed with an inspiring story of overcoming adversity, we're going to dig into his journey today. Kijuan has become a motivational force, empowering others to reach their highest potential. Kijuan, thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me. I really do.
Of course, my friend. Thank you for being proactive and finding me and finding Mile 40. I hope you've enjoyed the show thus far. I know you've referenced some of the previous episodes, and once I looked into you and the work that you're doing, this was a no-brainer for me. So I'm excited to have you on the show. So let's kick things off a little bit. Let's make sure we address this up front because this is being recorded on video right here. So clearly, you cannot see. You're blind, correct?
Correct.
And when did this happen?
May 5th, 2017.
Got it. So you're about 8 years into this journey now.
That's correct.
And, when I was going through your bio, you had a quote that really resonated with me. And it's a quote that's actually been brought up on this podcast before. You wrote, "You may have lost your sight, but you did not lose your vision." One of the very first episodes of this show was done featuring a guest called Joe Rinaldi. Joe's a friend of mine. And he has a disease called Best disease, where he's slowly going blind. And on that episode, we referenced that quote a lot because it says a lot about perspective. It says a lot how you deal with the cards that you've been dealt. And I definitely see some parallels between you and him really at the onset of this conversation. So talk to us about what led to the event back in 2017.
Back then in 2017, I was in the Air Force Reserves at the time. And I also had my own business. I was an entrepreneur then as well, doing a business called Kiwi Enterprise. I believe you mentioned in the bio. And I did social media marketing, photography, as well as website management and design. And that day I was going to shoot some pictures for a website that I was managing to update their website. And so I rode my motorcycle that day. what I call Nina. That was my bike. I called her Nina. And so it was a Kawasaki Ninja ZX6R for those bike lovers. Um, and when I went out for the shots, it was cool that I rode for a little while, but from my apartment to where I had to go to take the pictures might have been a 10-minute ride. And I was like, this isn't enough just to pull the bike out for the day. And so I rode a little bit further to one of my hot spots, which was so I'm here in North Carolina, and there's a lake here called Jordan Lake. And so I rode to Jordan Lake for a little bit where I go sit on this dock and just kind of zone out, get some time to myself, relax, and allow my thoughts to just flow freely. And then a car comes flying by, because there's not many in that area where I am. So a car comes flying by, and I was like, "Oh snap! I gotta figure out what's going on here. What time is it?" And so I looked down at my wristwatch, and back then I used to wear one, and so I was like, "Oh, I gotta get ready to go. I gotta work tonight for the Air Force." And so I'm headed, headed to the base, and kid you not, man, on this back road, there's only two lanes, the lane I'm in and the lane going past me. And there's an intersection coming up. And on this back roads here in North Carolina, we have a lot of trees. For those who have never been here, the tree lines are, certain areas are very tall. And so when you're on these back roads, what we call countryside or country roads, they cut the trees back in those areas so that you can see the oncoming traffic. Because the speed limit that I'm running is about 55 on this back road, because that was the speed limit for it. And you don't want to, not be able to see somebody coming at 55 miles an hour, So they cut the trees back for that purpose. But somehow this guy still didn't see me coming. And he pulls out in front of me as a silver Honda Accord pulled out in front of me. And pretty much I had three options is what I tell everybody. I could have went right and went into the trees, could have went left and went into oncoming traffic, or do basically what ended up happening, and that's freezing and running into him. So I froze up, hit him, and the rest is history. I end up in the hospital at UNC Hospital in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And what's always interesting about my story is everybody asks me, well, what was he doing? I have no clue. But I do know that the two cars behind him in the police report said that they saw me coming. So they don't know how he did it. So my story is now told that way, and I'm ended up in the hospital for the next 2 months. The first month, I'm in a medically induced coma. So I have no idea I'm even a part of the world. All I know is I was still alive some way, some shape, somehow. They were working on me doing countless surgeries, literally from head all the way down to my right foot. So uh, I had to spend 2 months in the hospital doing physical therapy, occupational therapy, different things like that, and really just recovering, resting, because I couldn't do much of anything. I mean, before I had the accident, I probably weighed somewhere around 185, 190, and that was more muscle than anything, because I wasn't that big. I didn't carry a lot of weight, and when I was in that hospital, when I woke up, I might have been like 150, maybe, because I've been restrained to a bed pretty much, for a whole month, first off. And then for the second part of that month, or that month that I was in there, the second month that I was in there, I basically was just getting out of bed when somebody could get me out of the bed. So it wasn't really on my own will until like the latter part of my stay in the hospital. So from May 5th until July 7th, that was the time I stayed in that hospital. Man, it was an experience I don't want to experience again.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know we kind of dove right into it, but my mind has so many questions to ask you about. You know, we read your bio, but leading up to that incident, how old were you in 2017 when that happened?
I was 25.
You were 25 when that happened.
25.
Wow. You know, that's just, unimaginable. And I'm sure for you, like you said, right? Like it was 10 minutes away when you left the house. Um, and your life literally got turned upside down. Paint a picture for us about prior to the incident, what life was like for you. Just the first 25 years of life. Because I have to imagine this was the beginning of a new chapter you never anticipated writing.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, May 5th, 2017 became my new journey. So everything before that was athletics. As a child, I grew up bowling. I was actually a USBC sanctioned bowler, so that stands for United States Bowling Congress. I was a sanctioned bowler. Um, and I started that at the age of 5. Then I started playing basketball at the age of 10. Then I started playing football in middle school and ran track in middle school as well. And then I also carried that up into high school, track and football. So those are the two I stuck with. And it's funny I stuck with those two because I would go on to in the military and have to run on a track. So that's actually pretty funny that that happened that way. But yeah, my first 25 years were athletic. They were entrepreneurial mindset. They were disciplined. They were the military. They were traveling. I spent a lot of time on the road because of my job, in flight refueling. And also, for those who don't know what that is, that's where you refuel planes in midair. So you're actually pulling up to a flying gas station. Now, fortunately, commercial airliners can't do this. I would not. I don't think I would want a commercial airliner pulling up behind us in the sky. Not to say that they can't, because some commercial airliners are prior military, or some are still serving in the reserves or guard. So I would love for them to pull up, but not everybody's been in the military. So, but yes, that was the job I did.
So I'm
So
going to circle back to athletics, but I want to ask, what about your family life? What was family like?
I did have one, and what I mean by that is I just I did have a girlfriend at the time, but I didn't have any children. I
What
was
about
not
parents?
married. Uh, didn't have any obligation. Didn't even have a dog, so I wasn't like tied down to anything. And the reason I didn't wasn't because I didn't want it. It's because I knew my lifestyle. I knew that the military had me going frequently, and I didn't want to miss out on a lot of things. So I figured if I was going to do something like that, I would rather do it on the back half than the front half.
What about parents or siblings when you were younger?
Yeah, yeah. My mother and my father, yeah, they both lived in in this, well, they lived in my hometown. I, of course, lived in North Carolina, but I was living in Goldsboro the first 4 years of my commitment. So first the 4 years I was on active duty, so I stayed right there by the base. Um, and then when I became a reservist, I moved back to Durham. And so, uh, growing up, we, tight knit family, very tight knit family. Family cookouts, all that good stuff, man. Going outside to play as a kid, that was my life. Nowadays, kids don't know what that means. You tell them to go outside, they look at you sideways. And so, um, I do my best to instill some of that in my nephews. Like, hey man, let's go outside, let's do something, you know. But that was how I grew up. I grew up running around outside. I didn't want to be in the house. If I was in the house, it's because I got put on punishment, or it was nighttime, or I was playing a video game with somebody. Like that was the only reason.
Yeah. So the reason I ask you this question is because we're going to talk about how athletics and family played a role in helping shape your mindset once the accident took place. right? And so, what I want to get at here with regards to this family question was, and it sounds like you addressed that you were a tight knit family. So it seems like you had parental support when you were younger. They were there for you. They probably instilled certain values in you. I had to imagine they played a role because, you had mentioned the importance of discipline in your 20s. And I feel like most kids aren't just waking up yearning for discipline. It's usually something that's at least brought up as a value in a household. And then, everyone takes their own course with regards to how it's applied from that perspective. Was discipline always a factor in your household?
Yeah. Yes. I was not the one to get put in timeout. Okay. I was gonna have to take time out so I can regroup. That was my household, and I'm honestly grateful for it because I didn't get many. I didn't get many, and the reason I didn't get many is because I remember how it felt last time. I didn't want another one. I was afraid. Oh no, I'm gonna get a whooping. Like it was one of those. And there was this one time I had received one, and I had just got out of the tub, man. I don't know anybody knows about butt whoopings, but you do not want one when you just get out of the tub, okay? And my dad had just gotten that house, and my mom laid the story on him, and he called my name, and you know the call. It's like, oh no, yes, like one of those moments.
You did.
And I tell you,
You
I
know you did
never.
something you weren't supposed to do.
I got it. Well, one of the teachers quit.
Okay. Oh wow.
I was that bad.
Wow.
My Spanish, one of my Spanish teachers had quit, man, and she of course blamed it on me. I'm like, I'm the only kid that really pushes you that hard. Come on.
So you were a bit of a troublemaker growing up.
Yeah, I was.
Were you
I
like
just
were you
tried
like
not. I
were you
tried not to get caught.
were you an instigator, or how would you describe yourself?
Not an instigator. I'm more of an initiator. So what it was mostly was I get bored really fast. So now don't get me wrong, I do all of my work. Very smart, very studious. But as soon as I finish, now I'm looking for somebody who's done as well. Hey, are you finished? Are you done? And I'm asking all these questions around the class, and she's like, "Be quiet," stuff like that. Silencio, por favor. And I'm like, "No." It's basically what I was doing. So uh, it wasn't as blatant as that, but me continuing to talk to other students while they're either taking a test or doing some kind of classwork when I'm finished, she was of course fed up.
Got it. So you were a nuisance, you caused some trouble, but nothing nothing crazy, right? No,
Oh
nothing
no,
nothing criminal, nothing like that when you were younger.
listen, I'm not that guy.
Okay.
I knew better than that.
Okay. All right. Well, sometimes you just happen to go down the wrong path unexpectedly.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. It just wasn't me.
yeah. No, no, that's great. Okay. So now, we have a little bit of background here. We understand your family life. We understand some of the things that were important to you. You talk about athletics. Now take us back to 2017. You know, yeah, one of the central themes to this show is the power of sport and athletics as it pertains to shaping mindset. It's something that has come up over and over and over again on several episodes. We've had Olympians on this show, we've had D1 athletes on this show. We've had some people with extensive athletic backgrounds, and we've had people who have faced circumstances similar to yours in a way where athletics was a big part of their younger years, and then tragedy hit. And where there's a parallel between all these stories is the lessons that you learn through athletics and how you employ those lessons when you're navigating hardship. Once you find yourself in a pit, right? The narrative here is, how you rise up from hitting rock bottom. And clearly your setback was in 2017. Let's talk about the comeback over the last 8 years now, and how you shaped yourself into the individual that you are today, impacting people all over the place by means of the lessons that you had to summon up the courage to teach yourself, during these, you know, ever so difficult, unimaginable moments. So talk me through what your mindset was like those 2 months in the hospital. Was it despair, or was there any inkling of, "I'm gonna power through this"? And it's okay if it was despair, but let's paint a picture for the audience.
Well, like I told you, that first month, I didn't even know I was here. And what I mean by here, I did not know I was a part of the work. They had me in a medically induced coma. So June the 6th, when I did wake up, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I have no clue what happened to me. So waking up, I hear people talking, but I'm trying to figure out the voices and catch them. Um, and I noticed that it's my mom and my ex girlfriend now, but she was a girlfriend at the time. And I'm like, what are they talking about? Whoa, who in the world got in a motorcycle accident? Okay, this is getting too serious. I need to say something. And so I go to open my eyes, only to not be able to see. Okay. Uh, yeah. Now I go to open my mouth, but I can't talk because my jaw was broken and it's wired shut. Okay. This nightmare is not cool. Like, I'm so serious. This is how I woke up, June 6th, 2017. And to find out that I was the one who was in that motorcycle accident um, was not the best day for me, because that day I didn't like interact anymore. Like, I literally sunk in my bed. I don't even remember the rest of the day after that, to be honest. I don't know if there was any more nurses that came in, any more friends that came by. I don't remember anything else about that day after that hit.
Was it fair to say that was the darkest day of your life?
The discovery, I would say yes. I would say that was the darkest. Now there were some other dark moments, but yeah, that would have to be the darkest, because I was just trying to figure out, well, why? I'm a safe rider. Why would that happen to me? And then I hadn't found out yet that it wasn't my fault. But when I found out the next day, it was the other guy's fault. That's when I started to question, what the heck, man? Like, come on. Like, now I'm trying to figure out, how do I get back to work? Because all I'm thinking about is the military is going to claim me as AWOL and I'm going to go to jail. I'm like, all of this is going through my head because all I'm doing is laying idle in a hospital bed. So I can't do anything else but think. And so all these things are running through my head, how I'm trying to figure out a way to get back to work, even though I can't freaking move to save my life. Like, I don't have any core strength. With a spinal cord surgery, 2 broken legs, I can't do anything. I couldn't even walk. I had to learn how to walk all over again. So, which actually goes back to what you mentioned about sports. They said if I wasn't in that good of physical condition that I was in, I wouldn't have made it through the accident. So I always tell people, 2 things. Physical condition is more than just about looking the part, and then secondly, we got to keep that mental correct, on point as well. So I always talk to people about mental health as well. I'm still going through mental health today. So, or therapy, shall I say, today, because I treat that so seriously, since I do have a severe traumatic brain injury. But back to where I was going with the story, there were days in the hospital, I'm feeling good, and days I'm like, y'all need to leave me alone. This ain't it. This ain't the one. Like, and I gave a lot of people some serious problems at the hospital, but I have since went back and apologized to them about it. Um, but I was a fighter. I was a fighter. I was an overcomer. My whole mindset, especially being in sports, pretty much all my life, majority for sure of my life. It brought out the competitor in me. It made me want to go work out. Physical therapy was fun to me. The only hard part about physical therapy was the walking, because I really had to learn how to walk again, and I don't put that on anybody. If you are over 100 and something pounds and you're trying to learn how to walk, that is hard. As children, we're like in the teens or maybe 20 pounds learning how to walk. And to be over 100, man, that sucks. That's a lot of weight. Yeah. And so um it was one of those things that I did, I won't say lift myself up by my bootstraps, but I did say, listen, we're gonna get back on our feet on this thing. I did everything I could. I set goals for myself. Like I wanted to be able to walk without any support, no wheelchair, no transfer, no walker, no support cane. I didn't want any of that. So my goal was to make sure I was back walking again without all of those support devices by my birthday of that year, which was November 22nd. Well, I'm past my goal by almost a month. I was back
Let's
walking
go.
in October, man.
Let's go.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, when I set my mind to do something, it's hard to stop me.
Well,
I'll say that right
your
now.
mind is your most powerful muscle, and people forget that sometimes.
The
And
most powerful, because
yeah,
well, first and foremost, your body can't do anything without it.
your body can't do anything, and like people forget about it. I mean, I'm amazed every single time we have a guest such as yourself come on the show, and just serves as a reminder, right? And it really puts things in perspective, right? Like, this is going to sound so silly compared to your situation, but just for the audience's sake, a lot of times you hear people talk about how the last 5 miles of a marathon are just purely your mind carrying you through, especially if it's your first, right? And this is that times 1,000, right? Because this is not about finishing a race, which we all have capable legs to finish. Even if you think you're slow, even if you're not in great of shape, I guarantee you that as long as you have legs that work, you can do the 26 miles, whatever it is. But what you're showing and what you demonstrated in reality is the fact that your mind can do some unbelievable things. You can learn how to walk. You can will yourself to walk after facing tragedy. Like that, the two don't even compare. But it's just kind of a testimony to um, how you shouldn't forget the power of mindset. And that's such a beautiful place for this conversation to go, because I think if it wasn't for that innate mindset, again, we probably wouldn't be here today having this conversation.
Yeah, no, seriously, because there were those. Let's end it all. I don't want to be here, but for what? I can't. I couldn't see the things I wanted to see. I couldn't fly anymore on the aircraft. Like, and when I mean fly, I mean the aircraft I flew on in the Air Force. I can go get on a plane at a commercial, airliner. That's fine. I've done that. But I want to see a plane pulling up behind me in the sky. Who who the freak can say they've seen that? There's not many. And for that to be a real job where you got a fighter or a bomber or a cargo heavy aircraft flying up right behind you. And when I say right behind you, I mean right behind you, and you getting to reach out with a pole and plug it. It's amazing. So yeah, it definitely made me, take a backseat for a second. I had to, and that's another reason why I still go through mental therapy, because I do have my times where I regress a little bit. But as long as you don't stay there, that's the best part of it. Because it's okay to have your days.
You're gonna have setbacks. That's okay.
It's okay to have your days, but don't dwell in it. And so that's what I had to tell myself, give myself grace.
Hey, Mile 40 fam. I get asked a lot about my training programs and how I set myself up for success to cross finish lines all over the world. Well, I'm going to let you in on a secret. Recovery is half the battle. And in order to get that recovery, I rely on clean sources of protein. That's why my go-to protein shake is Owen. Only what you need. I have one after every single workout. 100% vegan and plant-based, Owen's plant-based shakes use a multi-source protein blend of pea, pumpkin seed, and flax seeds to include all essential amino acids to promote optimal daily health. Uncompromised taste. Owen brings together the essential elements of advanced nutrition, amazingly clean ingredients, functional superiority, and uncompromised taste. Now go ahead, go to www.liveowen.com. That's spelled LIVEOWYN.com. Use code MILE40 for 20% off your next purchase. Only what you need. Yeah. No, I mean, you're absolutely spot on, and I really I'm so honored that you're here because when I hear and I speak to people like you, you really put perspective on everything because so many of us have the sight that you lost, and we're unable despite having the sight, we're unable to have the vision, to kind of undo the quote, right? And one of the things that's abundantly clear with a lot of people who accomplish great things like you have is there's generally an element of, call it manifestation. And part of manifestation is essentially seeing your success before it happens, right? And, despite the fact that you lost your sight, you were able to envision that success. And and that is just such a phenomenal thing to reflect on. I could talk to you forever about that. And, I have no doubt that anyone listening to this is already very inspired by this. So we talked about how your mind shaped you during those stages. You willed yourself to walk. At what point did you start to think to yourself, all right, these are my circumstances. This is the hand that I've been dealt. I've been able to take them and I've been able to get myself in the right direction. Not ideal, but this is where we are. Now, let me take what I've learned and inspire or at least show others that, you know, I can be I can be a source for good. At what point did the narrative shift to no longer just helping yourself, but now helping others?
That shifted when I kept telling my story to people, like a one-on-one conversation like we're having, and they kept telling me, "Hey, man, you need to write a book, or you need to do something like tell a story, or." Be, and I was just like, That's not me. I've never wanted to be in front of people. I am not that guy." And now I've spoken to audiences of over 1,500 people. I mean, I mentor people all the time. I am just so grateful for the opportunity that people want to hear me, because I have been told that my story didn't matter. And that I'm saying that with a full heart. And somebody said, that story's kind of old. It doesn't matter anymore. It's just, what do you mean my story doesn't matter? Tell me exactly how it doesn't. And then I'll tell you why it does. So when I've been told something like that, but I still hear, you got one person over here saying the story doesn't matter, and then you got 1,000 people over here saying that, dude, you inspired me. You don't matter anymore. So now tell me who matters. you know, and so I don't I don't necessarily look at it like that either, because my thought process behind it is, if I can reach one, man, just one,
That's all that matters.
that's really what matters.
That's all that matters. And I think that's again another unifying factor with a lot of the voices that we've had here, right? Like it's all about just reaching that one person. I think you'd agree with me, when you when you realize the power of impacting just one person, there's this feeling within you that emboldens you to keep going regardless of what naysayers have to say,
Right.
because they don't matter. Like, they don't at the end of the day, they don't matter because the impact you're gonna have on that one person is going to be 10 times whatever that naysayer is whatever negativity that naysayer is projecting on you. Because that it's better, if you don't have anything nice to say, you probably shouldn't say anything at all, is really what it comes down to, right? Like, you learn that as a child. Uh, so anyone that has to go out of their way to discredit or disclaim or to write off is simply just projecting something within themselves. Uh,
Exactly.
and so, but it takes a certain level of strength on your end to see that and to power through. And clearly, you've recognized that. And so, that's incredible. And now, based on some of the information you shared with me, I see you're speaking in front of large audiences. And you're really playing this hand that you never anticipated being dealt, in a way that, um, again, I think is just super inspirational. So talk to me a little bit about the organization that you've been building.
Yes. So Amey Motivation is my motivational speaking business. And that was strictly what it was going to be. But it seems to be evolving every day because people keep asking me about life coaching opportunities and mentorship. And I'm like, I don't, I don't know anything about that. So now I'm having to go get some certificates and, certifications to become a life coach. And I'm already a mentor, certified mentor, and so my thing is, I'm I always accept challenges, and I don't mind it, but I just make sure it's not something that I'm not called for. I don't want to just be doing something just to be doing it. I want to make sure that I'm adding value to what I'm doing, and so, like I said, the initial process was, hey, I'm a motivational speaker. I know I can be that because of what I've come through and what I'm still doing. Um, I told you I was an athlete before my accident. I'm still an athlete after. I compete in adaptive sports as well.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, back in 2022 is my last big competition, like really, really big stage. We were down in um, Disney at the Department of Defense Warrior Games. And so they host us there for 2 weeks, 14 total days. I can't compete in the team sports because those are the ones that you actually have to be able to see, like wheelchair rugby, wheelchair basketball, seated volleyball, those types of sports. You might want to see a ball coming to you. Okay. Uh, so those things I did not compete in. But what I did compete in was tandem cycling. I competed in cycling. And for those who don't know what tandem means, it's where you have two people on one bike. The person in front can see, I cannot. And so tandem cycling, rowing, but there was two of them. So I had the 1 minute row and the 4 minute row. And then you're trying to see who can get the furthest in those times for who you're competing against. I also competed in shot put and discus. And I got a medal in each one of those events. Now, hear me now. There are over 200 people competing in these events. We all have different categories, like classifications that we're under. But in my classification, I was able to medal in every event I did. So I honestly went that year just hoping to, show up and be some kind of good. But I actually was good. I was better than what I was going to be. I just wanted to make sure I wouldn't last. And I wasn't because I medaled. And it was an amazing time. I mean, Disney treated us like royalty. It was all military based. We also invited Canada and Ukraine to come and partake. So they both sent teams as well, but you compete against every other branch of the U.S. service. So Navy, Marines, Army, Coast Guard was kind of sprinkled inside the Army. It wasn't really big for them. And then us, the Air Force. So we all could have no more than 40 people on one team, and you competed at all the sports. And it was amazing. I mean, the other sports competitions they had were air rifle, archery, powerlifting. I feel like I think that's it. That
I'm
might
so
be it.
proud of you, man, because, you know, as you know, throughout your lifetime, there's just something so exhilarating about the competition of sport, you know? Even if you're not good at a specific sport, and you're just kind of learning and you're kind of going through it and you're competing for the first time, there's this feeling of, not only do I potentially want to beat the other person, but I want to be better than I was. Like, I want to get better, right? And it is so easy to lose that motivation when you're dealt with a situation like you were dealt, right? And that brings me to the title of your book, Don't Focus on Why Me, right? Because I feel like, you talk about competing, and I feel it. I feel it. I see it in your facial expressions. I see when you kind of give a half smile, like recalling some of the memories and meddling. And it it brings me to moments. Like, you kind of bring me into the moment, which, like I've said to someone else who's been on this show, it's exactly what you want to do as an author. You want to bring the reader to the room. You want to bring them to exactly where you are. And that speaks to you as a speaker as well. So talk to me a little bit about the title of the book. It's clear, obviously, as to why it makes sense. But was that something you had to kind of think through before you decided this is gonna be the name of the book?
It was the question that I asked when or usually everybody asks, but I asked that question when I woke up and I was trying to figure out what the heck just happened and why me. That's basically where it came from. And we tend to focus so much on why me whenever something truly, especially as traumatic as what happened to me. But it could be anything. Your lights got cut off. Anything. Yeah, why is this happening to me? I just got in a car accident and all I did was bust out my head like, oh, why did this happen to me? I'm trying to get to work. Whatever. And so I'm sitting there asking that question to myself, but I got a response. And I wasn't expecting that. And the response was, well, why not you? And I said, now I know I'm in this hospital room alone. What was that? And then all these different memories and different scenarios started coming to mind of what I could do, not what I couldn't do.
Yeah, you got me fired up, man. Keep going.
So that's where it came from. Don't focus on the why me aspect of it. Focused on the why not me.
That's perfect for so many reasons. Uh, you know, I always tell people that if you take on the perspective that no one was built to play the hand that you were dealt besides you. So take it as you were dealt that hand for a reason, right? Because no one's life is perfect. A lot of people face different kinds of adversities. A lot of people have different challenges, right? But I am a firm believer that, call it faith, call it whatever you may want to call it, that we are dealt hands that we were built to handle. Um, and when you think about everything that you navigated in the first 25 years of life, it sounds to me like in different elements of your life, you're being equipped in case something came your way. So that way, when it did come your way, you were prepared. You had the mental foundation, right? You had the emotional foundation. Look, anyone would have been thrown off by the situation. Anyone would have been, why me? Anyone would have been, in a pretty pissed off, sad, depressed, angry place in that hospital bed. I find it hard to believe that there's anybody that would have woken up in that hospital bed with a smile, and ready to kind of tackle. But there's a certain kind of human that is equipped to process it, not necessarily fully dust it off, but at least dust off your shoulders and get back up, learn how to walk again, and then ultimately not only walk for yourself, but walk alongside others as they navigate their own journeys. And that's a really beautiful way that I see your story. I hope, you know, I hope I didn't sell it short there, but that's what I see in speaking to you.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
So as we round things out here, Kiwan, I want to just say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for just inspiring us, for leaving us with a lot to reflect on. Uh, when you think about the journey ahead of you, and you're still young, you're what, 33? You're 33 years old. You still have a whole lifetime ahead of you, and you know, I, I can only imagine where you're going to go from here and the amount of people that you're going to touch. But when you think about your message and you think about your hopes for the future, what do you want people to walk away from your story in terms of how they take your story, internalize it, and then reflect it on the world? How do you want to impact others through your story?
Well, after you hear my story, you'll probably understand one of the biggest things about me is that you have to have the will to overcome anything.
Mm,
Well, I don't care what adversity it is, what hardship it might be, you have to have the will. And will to me is an acronym, and it stands for win in life's lessons.
hmm. It's beautifully said, my friend. That is the perfect way to end this episode. I want to thank you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for all the tidbits. Thank you for showing us how it's done, literally, for being a walking testimony to strength personified. I appreciate you, and I'm grateful that you've come on the Mile 40 podcast.
Thank you.
You got it. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode of the Mile 40 podcast, go ahead, subscribe, leave a review, and share the word. Thank you for being a part of the Mile 40 family. And let's unite in showing the world that comebacks are always greater than setbacks.